Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Quindy, for the most part, with a tiny sliver of Justin and John. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry for the slight delay there, but I figure I've gone overtime for the last couple streams, so, we're still good. Hello, 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 hello. Yes, yes, we're here. We are here. Quindy for the most part, yep. Like, I'm going to start just drawing analogies next. Like, Quindy at 98% of the pie chart. Like, if we made a Venn diagram, most of it would be Quindy. Hello, Bob and Julie. Good morning. Alrighty. Let me see. We have a bust. I decided to keep working on the bust. I will continue to keep working on the bust until something else shiny jumps up into my visual span and goes, "You should paint me on stream," and then I'll switch. Now you want pie. I'm sorry. Quindy at 98% power. I don't know, that gives like John and Justin like 2%. I don't know. Do they really like need that much? Like, is that really, are they really 2% of the stream? I really don't feel they are. I feel maybe 0.02%. Alrighty, let's see. What am I gonna do today? I'm gonna do a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna do whatever I feel like doing, actually. And one of the things I feel like doing is blocking in the red on this model. So let's see here. I'm gonna put away my violet red from yesterday because I don't feel like working with that today. I think I'm gonna use heraldic red for a base and shade down with it. Using heraldic over the white zenith is gonna make it very bright, but that's kind of what I want because I'm also going over black with my darker parts of my zenith, so I want to have a little bit more pop because all of the red bits are pretty small. And I might also work on the feather today because part of the feather, I'm going to make little red bits on the feather. Little dyed red bits. Or maybe pretty big red bits. Depending. I'm going to block in the red on the bust, and then I'm going to decide how big and where on the hat we need to put some red. How about that? It's going to be chill today, guys. We're just chilling. We hang out and put some paint on things. It is 8 days till I find out if our puppy parent is pregnant with our potential puppy. Is that enough P alliteration for you? Hello, Astra TTV. Thank you for the tiny raid. And I love your name because actually it was the name of one of my dogs. So Astra is a great name. Alrighty. So we're starting out, and heraldic red is quite bright. It's a good like base red if you do want to start bright and then shade down and work up. Oh, World of Warcraft, awesome. Yeah, I play WoW. I play a little of it. My fiance is deadly addicted to it right now because he's raiding. Actually, he's mostly heroicing, and as he puts it, we're very bad raiders and we're pretty good heroic dungeoners. So he prefers mythic dungeoners. He would probably be gassed at me, like totally forgetting that they're doing mythics. But But yes, we play WoW. We'll be going back for the new expansion. Yes, pre-puppy anticipation. We'll see. The puppy may be, like right now is the time when the embryos would be implanting. I think it was this past weekend. So our puppy may be not only a collection of cells at this point, but a little U-shaped doglet inside of mommy dog. We shall see. We shall see. Ultrasound is on the 25th. Have it marked on my calendar so I can bug Bridget. We did everything within our power to make this breeding happen, so we will find out. Okay. We are online. Pre-potential puppies. Yes. And have to have more alliteration there. I didn't set out to make that phrase, but I decided I was going to go with it once I started. So, but yes, we will know. We will shortly know whether ultrasound doesn't give you an exact head count for puppies. It just pretty much it's to confirm pregnancy, so you can start preparing for getting your supplies ready, preparing for the birth, and all that kind of thing. You really want to know a little bit in advance because, you know, there's a lot of prep work if you're going to whelp a litter well. So, yeah. So we do ultrasound at 5 weeks, roughly. So we should at least know, hey, we have puppies, and we may get a slight count. They can usually figure out if there's a lot of heartbeats in there, or if or a lot of little puppy lumps. Now remember, I decided to split this area here, kind of artificially, into red and gold because I wanted a little bit of extra red. And you can do that if you've got a big flat area. Like, you could just do a simple like border. In this case, I'm painting it as if it's red but has a gold border on it. And chances are, like, if you put a nice dark line between the red and the gold, nobody's gonna even know that it wasn't sculpted on. They'd have to look quite closely. Here I left a little bit of the black, but I'll also go back and put a line in there. But that gives us a nice flash of color here. I wanted to start getting the red in place to see kind of how I felt about it. There's not as much room on this side for it, but there still is a little. We still have a lot of gold to do too. And a lot to do on the lace. I've only got the initial parts. I don't have any of the white on there yet. I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to do for it. I think I want to do kind of a linen texture on the front here. And I want to do some sort of lace patterning on the cravat, but I haven't yet looked at cravats to figure out what I want to do. And here I totally dropped a ball, putting all gold on one side and no gold on the other side. Boy, go me. However, I do want this bow tie to be red. I guess I could hold off on that, technically. Although I will have red on both sides, so technically the bow tie should really be red. I could also go with this teal. But I feel like she'll already have the teal scarf coming down here. I don't want to go too monochrome with this. So I can put the red right over the zenith. I don't have to paint it just over the white. I can put it over everything. Red being somewhat transparent and me having thinned this just a little bit, it's going to be translucent enough to show the zenith. So I think I only thinned it about 4:1, but red is a pigment that just doesn't have a great coverage unless you're dealing with real cadmiums, which very few people want to mess with nowadays. Cadmium red was popular back in the early days of painting because it had coverage and other reds didn't. But of course it is a toxic substance, so we are going away from it in today's pigments. Which leaves us with a bunch of reds that don't have great coverage, although some technological advances have enabled us to get reds with decent coverage, which actually heraldic is one of them. Yeah, I like red for the bow too, Pendrick. She needed a little bit of brighter color to spice her up because she was getting very blue and brown, which is a complementary color scheme technically, since brown is muted orange most of the time. You can have a very yellowy brown that counts more like a yellow, and you can have a very reddish brown like ruddy leather that counts more toward the red scale. But most browns really are kind of in the middle there. You're making them by mixing earth pigments with black, and the earth pigments are generally orange colored, red colored, or yellow colored. Or you're mixing red and yellow colored earth pigments and then adding black. So either way, you end up with essentially an orange with black in it. So when I say that browns are muted oranges, that's what I mean. Over here, I am going to put in my red stripe. And then I'm going to go back and correct to this other side here. We're going to get our red going on here so that we can have that in place and really get a sense of how our color balance is working out. I mean, okay, so color-wise, Polly, I don't know if you're on my Patreon, but I just did a PDF on this for the $10 tier, or no, $5 tier. I did the equivalent for Artist Tube paints. Coverage-wise, Heraldic has like better coverage, but color-wise, this is not the color you want for cadmium red. Cadmium red is very much a tomato red. And I believe that the color equivalent I gave was like magma red, which is 9217. So there's two different questions that you're talking about there. Two different questions. One of them is the color of cadmium red, and two is the coverage of cadmium red. And those are two separate things. So I'm not saying actually that Heraldic is a good sub for cadmium red. I'm saying that it's a good high coverage red if the reason that you reach for cadmium is that it has coverage. Okay, yes. See, in my opinion, the only reason to use cadmium red is for the coverage, because I find it a very ugly color myself. It's very tomatoey red. Magma would be the closest, 9217. Because it is a very tomato red. It has an orangey shift to it. An orangey and earthy shift to it. Cadmium red is a good red to mix with like other like red oxides, like oxide red, if you want a very earthy autumn kind of red. And if you mix it with the oxide red, it will actually, I feel, take it even a little bit closer to the cadmium red's actual color, and it will actually give it more coverage because the earth tone pigments are very high coverage. So you can play around with that, mixing those two, and you'll probably get something that's very close to cadmium red. I'm gonna throw some walnut brown down because I need to do some. I need to put down some dark lines to separate these colors, and I do want to bring in my NMM base over here too, so I'm gonna mix that up as well. Yeah, cadmium red, like, some people probably love the color, but I'm just like, I think in my head, I'm like, really the only people who would use this are people who really want the coverage. Because I think that other reds are much prettier. But that is me. And I'm sure there's somebody out there who absolutely loves the color of cadmium red and gets a ton of utility out of it. Now, we were using a shield brown base for a lot of this NMM gold. Well, that's cool, Lady Kachara. Did you get the, I hope you got like rosy skin and tan skin. Those are the, I feel like those colors are really, really high utility. If I had to recommend 2 skin tone triads from Reaper, it would be rosy and tanned. Unless you're painting like Asian people, and then it would be golden skin. And if you are trying to paint African skin tones or Middle Eastern, then I would say go to the Bones range and pick up Ebony and Ruddy, and probably also use dark skin from the base range. Fair skin and tan skin sets. Okay, yeah, rosy skin is a different set. It's more of a pinkish tone. So that would be the next one. Fair skin, remember to shade it with actually tanned highlight, Kachara. My only regret with those beginning skin tone sets is that I feel like the fair skin triad is very, very pale and needs just a little bit of a darker shadow. But they're made to all work together, so you technically could paint a mini with fair shadow, tanned highlight, and tan skin as a triad, and they would work. So be aware that that's a thing. So you actually have more than 2 triads, because you can also use colors from both sides to create a new triad. So you could do tan skin, tanned highlight, fair shadow, or you could do tanned highlight, fair shadow, and fair skin. You could do it that way. But I like to just say that because I do find that the fair skin triad, for me, all these years after I made it, I find it's just a little bit too pale. It needs more depth. So I will often use tanned highlight or tanned skin as a shadow on it because I feel like it needs more depth. Yeah, it's very pale, and the problem is that because the colors are so close to each other, you don't really get the shadow you need to kind of differentiate between areas, I find. This is less true if you're working over black primer. If you're working over black primer, then your fair shadow is going to probably go a bit darker over the black primer, and then as you're working with fair skin and fair highlight, as you add those layers on, the black primer has less of an impact, so you actually will get a better result over black primer with the fair skin triad. But I do find that otherwise, if you're working over a white primer, I find that it's too pale and you should either start darker or shade with those colors. Oh, I never noticed that I had a big fissure in the back of this block. Maybe that's why I chose it to be my big model block. Anyway, back to our awesome color of shield brown with a bit of polished leather in it for our base tone on our gold. Thinning it about 4:1 for a base coat. Yay, Gloom and Grave. Oh, I see. You're picking up fast pellets. Okay, yeah. Yep, good. You've got rosy then. But keep that in mind what I just told you about the fact that fair and tanned work together, Kachara. Because otherwise the fair skin triad is a little bit too pale. You could also use rosy shadow. They will work. It'll give you a bit more blush in your fair skin, which is always nice. Yeah, a lot of the sets that Reaper put out with combined triads, I don't know necessarily because they all came out after I was after I left. So it's good to know that they have skin tone fast palettes that combine. Alrighty, so then we'll go over here and I need some white. Oh, I'm glad you like it, Babel. Yeah, Black Indigo rocks. It's a great shadow color. I was using it on everything for a while. Now it's one of my intense darks that I use a lot. Maybe we'll use it on this model, actually. Maybe we'll shade our Storm Chaser blue with it. That might be fun. Getting my white out. Yeah, buy it. Buy lots of Black Indigo. Keep it in print. I'm going to do a 2:1 with my white. Paint to water. Because I want it to go on in thin lines and be controllable. When you want better control with your paint, thin it. Don't need to thin it a ton, but a little bit of water will go a long way in helping it to flow nicely off of your brush. Just make sure that you also unload your brush so you don't have a ton of paint on it, or you will get the opposite effect. All right, so let's get this other part mapped in. I think I need one more drop of white. So what I'm doing here is I painted that entire area in gold, and it needs to be actually alternating red gold. So I want to put white down first under my red, though, because it will make my red brighter. If I try to paint red over this gold, it will look very dark and it won't have the bright color. So instead, we want to put down a little bit of white first with our underpainting, and then we will get a better red. You should pretty much always do this when you're putting red, yellow, or orange over a darker color. Hello, Daffodweir. So I was reading a medical study yesterday that made me feel very guilty and made me resolve to structure my day better, because it's like, how you shouldn't sit a lot and how we all do. and how nasty sitting can be over the long term, like if you sit too much and you never get up and move during your day. So guilty. I have a standing desk, but I need to use it more. So sadly, this stream makes it impossible to follow their recommendations because I'm pretty much in this chair for an hour and a half. But what they recommend is that every 30 minutes you should stand up and stand for every 30 minutes you should stand for 8. Get up, stand for 8, stretch a little, and then do another 30 minutes. That's what they recommend. So I need to be better about that. That's one thing about working at Reapers. I was on my feet all day, every day. And it definitely had there were pros and cons to that. But probably preferable to sitting on my rump all day. Can't do the standing desk. I can, because of all that time at Reaper. While I was at Reaper, I had to I had to be working on to-do lists and inventory and stuff like that. So I got very into, I would just stack up some buckets till I had essentially a standing desk, a very small round standing desk, and then I would work. So I got very much in the mode because I had to. It was just more efficient for me to be standing working on those things while I was, switching off, essentially working while the paint shaker was going. It was much more efficient for me to be doing that than to try to go to my office, sit down, and then have to get up and go out again. So I guess because I felt like I needed to do it, I got used to working while standing. Yeah. And it's not like, if we were just a little more mindful, we could at least get up and stand a little bit. And it's not like you have to use a standing desk. I still mostly do my work, sitting, but I could get up and just move around, get a glass of water, do some stretches. That would probably help. It would probably help me feel better throughout the day. Not that I feel bad throughout the day now, because I do a lot of exercises in the morning now. Added some strength training. That gets me pretty good for my day. Unless I really do something to make my back angry. All right, so we're going to put a dark line through here. But I wanted to share that because, I'm all about personal wellness as well as mini preening. And I like to, when I learn these things, I like to share with y'all, because if I could even make my friends a little more mindful, then maybe it will, enable you to be around and happy and healthy for longer. So that's why I share these things. Because I want to be happy and healthy for a good long time, and I would like the rest of you to be hanging out with me. There. That'll work. I found that I could actually at least base coat while standing when I was at Games Workshop, when I worked in the retail arm, because they wanted me to, it's because I was just a stubborn little jerk too, because my cell manager, he didn't like me always painting. He wanted to, have me on my feet even though there were no customers in the store. So I just learned to paint standing up. Because I was irked because I realized it was just a control thing, which was the sort of thing they did at GW in those days. And so, I just learned to paint standing up. So he'd walk in, he'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm standing here and painting and waiting for a customer to walk in." Couldn't really say anything about that. So yes, you can base coat a mini while standing. It is possible. Doing finer work, impossible. Well, not impossible, but very difficult. Well, the doglet will be high maintenance early on, but I mean, doglet won't be a doglet will definitely help with the stream, because we probably will need to take a break halfway through the stream to let doglet out, to empty the doglet. The doglet must be emptied. So I'm guessing, yeah, because usually every couple hours a puppy needs to go, and I don't know, what the cycle the puppy will be on. So we may have to put a little break in the middle of our stream for the doglet. But as the doglet gets older, the doglet will be probably perfectly happy doing a Kiri and sitting here and snoozing until Mama is ready to do more interesting things. So... Yeah, I hear you, Raven Day. It does take a little bit of Orograte. I do a lot of my PDFs and am writing for the Patreon on my MacBook. So I have just a laptop that I use for majority of that. My only non-laptop is actually my gaming computer in the other room. That's a traditional desktop. All right, and I need to base coat the epaulette over here, and it is in shadow, but I feel like I need to touch it up a little bit. And this is where we underpaint our zenith. So even though we have a big shadow over here, and it definitely, you can see touches of zenith though. You can see a touch of zenith here, a little bit here. We did get a little bit of zenith coming through from my backlight, because I've got light coming from front and back from this direction for the most part, and from above and to the side. So I did get a light dusting. This is where you really have to look for those light dustings of zenith. The heaviest is right here, so this will be the really heavy part. And then I can emphasize that with a little bit of underpainting. I do need to thin my white a little bit for the rest of this, because I want only a very slight. I don't want as strong of an underpainting going out from this. And there's a little bit out here. Tiny bit here. So then we can bring this out a little bit more while still being in line with our zenith if we just pay attention to our priming, and then we emphasize it just a little bit more. Then when we paint over this with our gold, it'll remind us. The doglet, yes. Yes, we started calling, it was David actually. David started calling Kiri doglet. So now it's the new doglet is just the doglet. All right, so if we see this, we can see how there is a shadow. When I put the hat on, there is a shadow toward the front here. But there is a little bit of light leaking in toward the back, and there's definitely light out here. So I feel like I placed my highlights in good places. I could probably emphasize. I could probably emphasize this a little bit more. Yeah, I do really love my standing desk, and I do write at my standing desk. But I'm going to try to make it more of a habit throughout the day. Like, actually, I downloaded a Pomodoro timer yesterday so that it would remind me to stand up every 30 minutes. Yeah, a little bit erratic over here, so I'm going to touch up this. I also have a little bit of gold braid right there coming out from the button, so I need to hit that. I don't know. David wants to name our puppy Cerberus. I doubt we're going to get one with 3 heads. Ah. So our puppy may end up being Cerberus Seri for short. But as mentioned before, I won't actually name the puppy until I meet the puppy. Once we have confirmation of pregnancy, I'll probably sit down with David and toss some names around. So we have a potential list that we like. But I want to know that the puppy actually exists first, so otherwise I'll get all excited for nothing. I also need to look at flights, which is going to be freaking expensive now, the way they are. Crazy expensive flights right now. But I need to fly out and do the litter evaluation and get my puppy, so... we'll need to be figuring that out as well. There. Just added a little bit of white under there so that that'll be more her in our her. That's why it's ridiculous that David wants to name her Cerberus, but you know, who am I to say? He's just set on spoiling the doglet as hard as he possibly can because he wants the doglet to like him better. Because Kiri was definitely my dog, right, when we came. Like, Kiri was always my dog since she first came. And so... David wants our new doglet to like him better. Told him he can be the good cop and I'll be the bad cop. That's what usually happens anyway. Yeah, Cerberus was a guy. Pronoun he. We looked it up just to be sure. But I want Greek mythological names, and there are plenty of like good mythological names. And I'm probably still, if the puppy is black, which is a chance because the dad is black and it's a dominant gene in that breed, I'm still probably going to push for Nyx, the goddess of night, daughter of chaos, if we get a black puppy. Cerberus, I don't know. I like goddess names. I like Artemis. I like, I like Circe, even though that didn't work out that great for her either. But we'll see what she is. Like I said, this is why you can't name a puppy till you meet her. You got to figure out what the personality is. It's just like naming a baby. It's like why most people have alternate names. Like, my parents had 2 different names for me that they were looking at. And I could have been an Elizabeth Ann or I could have been an Ann Elizabeth. But when I came out, they're like, that's an Ann, not a Liz. So I ended up not being an Elizabeth Ann. Which is cool because I like Ann better anyway. No offense to any Liz's in the audience. Raven Day. There we go. So you came out and you looked more like an Elizabeth Ann, and I looked more like an Ann Elizabeth. There we go. See? You got to meet the person. You could have been an Amanda. But Amanda's such a cool name. I've always liked Amanda. But I like A names. I'm biased toward A names. I may use Elizabeth as a pen name, Raven Day, for my books. For some of my books. Just because, I like to have it based on my real name, but not be my real name. I think pen names are definitely a thing that I'm going to be doing, so. Your sister is an Elizabeth Ann? Yeah. You were supposed to be a Keith. It's funny. I forget what my brother had a real, he really dodged a zonker because I think one of the possibilities for his name was one of a great grandfather's name, something you never hear anymore, right? Very antiquated name, but he ended up being a Pete, so we're happy that he's a Peter instead. Pete suits him better anyway. Like there are some like archaic names that I really like. Like Elijah is a pretty cool name. But and my mom is a Lois. There we go. So I wanted to lighten that up, so I put down some white and put it over the top again. I wanted this area to be a little lighter off the bat. You guys are silly. And by you guys, I mean Shadow Raven. Totally silly. All right, so we've got some of our red in here, but we're still missing a little bit more red. All right, let's get this hair tie thing, and I also have to get that earring to be gold. We're just blocking it all in today, folks. I'm sick of having not paint on some of this stuff. Very sick of not having paint on it. Right, so let's see here. Let's do our gold first. Then we'll do the red on that tie. So I could make this earring silver, but I'm really going with a lot of bling on her. So I decided to do gold. This is a very smooth earring, but you could technically freehand some design on it to imply that there's texture on the surface or that it has some engraving or some shaping to the gold. You can absolutely do that. So this is also an example where your zenith is going to fail you. Whenever you're dealing with a shiny surface, obviously your primer cannot mimic the under reflections that are necessary to mimic metal. So you only have your main reflection. So you must also remember that part of this dark, really dark area down here is going to be lighter. Ambush. Wow, that's cool. Hey, Blacksmith 3 was a pretty cool profession in the olden days. So I'm going to give her gold bands on either end of this hair wrap. Because bling. Because pirate. And then we'll get that red in there. And then it's just her hat that's going to be sticking out with nothing on it. It's nice how the red brings out the rosy tones in her lips and her face as well. Steel Pendrake's great-great-grandpa. Only if it's going to be a magical gunfighter. What's the character class in Pathfinder with the guns? I don't remember. Yeah, you need little spots of like something different for contrast, I think. Gunslinger. I should have known. Way to be like original and creative there, Pathfinder. Not. Get that in there. We're almost set. And then we can take a look and see what we have to do to our hat. All right. So that's our biggest spot of red right there. So I think I want the background of this ribbon. I think I want those to be red with a gold lion face. We've got the lace coming off on either side. And then I'll have to look at I think I want just thin stripes of red. Now that I look at it, now that I've got like some other red on the model, I think I really want just like thin little chevrons of red, kind of 2/3 of the way out. Because I don't want to distract, and then you won't really be able to see them from the front angle. You just see maybe a little bit, because I don't want them to pull the eye all the way out here. But I do want something that you can look at on the back here, and on the back it's more of a, you know, angle. It's not like out to the side as much in the viewing angles. So I think that definitely just a little bit of red, and it'll pretty much only show on the top two. We'll do the rest in kind of a cream color. Yep. Yeah, I did the Mushroom Queen a while ago. I don't know if you were with us then, Rainbow. I used the color scheme from the Monster Manual, but switched up a little bit. There's our Mushroom Queen. Looking forward to the resculpt that just they showed in Bone 6. Alrighty. So the easy way to do this is going to be to paint this entire area gold, and then to do a little bit of underpainting in white, probably with some walnut first, because there needs to be some more dark shadow. You can see where the black primer is. Yeah, they showed it. If you go look at the Kickstarter, you can still see the preview of the new Fungal Queen. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go gold over everything for these ribbons. Then I'm going to go back in with my walnut real quick, and then I'm going to go in with my white and my red, because the red's really only going to be the interior of the ribbons. So first I want everything, it'll paint faster if I just tackle it. I'm going to move to a wider brush. I'm going to use my Reaper Kolinsky 0, which is a nice kind of fat brush. So I'll go over the whole surface first with the gold, everything. And that's just for speed, because most of the surface is gold, and so it makes sense to do it that way. And I need to get those little buttons on either side. Make sure you get into all the crevices. Since you don't have to be like persnickety, you don't have to be careful really, because you're just painting over this whole big area. It lets you like kind of like get some extra paint in there and just kind of like make sure you slobber it into all the crevices. You should still be able to see your zenith through this, although a lot of this ended up being light, so I'll probably emphasize a little more zenith than originally was there. And in other words, I will artificially darken the shadows a little bit more than they were. It really is display, Rainbow, and the reason that people like to paint busts is that there are techniques that you can't really do on smaller models that you can do on larger models. So bust painting is pretty much for display, for art. There are techniques, like I said, that, for example, most of it's about textures, where you can do a certain amount of texture on a little tiny model. Like I did a little bit of kind of cloth texture. You can see a little bit of the kind of the lines that I put in for like to suggest cloth texture. You can see that I suggested fur texture here. You see that I was doing some dings and weathering on the blade, right? And also some worn leather texture on the back here. This is about the extent of what you can do on a 28mm figure. But then when you're working on a bust, you can really go crazy. And this is my hyena girl, my Knoll. And you can do beautiful fur texture that looks real. Because you're working on a bigger surface and you have more room to suggest this texture in this line. Like the fur texture here, on the edge here is where it's actually sculpted, but everything flat here is just painted on. So again, down here on the stomach, a little bit of fur texture that's actually sculpted on the very bottom, but otherwise all of the fur here is purely painted. So busts allow you to get like bigger and more intricate, to do things like cool facial markings, awesome tattoos, stuff that you really can't do on tiny, tiny models. This model is sadly, unfortunately, is not, this was a ReaperCon special. We're still like yelling to hopefully get Reaper to redo it. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't show up in Bone 6. But yeah, she's a ReaperCon exclusive. But I'm still working on her. The reason that I'm working on her, although I keep thinking about not working on her, but because she's not in print. But the reason I'm working on this bust is to essentially, and yes, the hat does come off. But it's essentially because it allows me to talk about bust techniques, about texture, about working on bigger models, on this stream, which otherwise we don't get, right? Reaper doesn't really, we have a few busts, but I don't own them. I owned this one, so I felt like this was a good bust to talk about these types of techniques on. But yeah, we'll be doing wool texture on the jacket, which is gonna be a stippling pattern, and that'll look different. You know, there's just things you can do on a bigger model. But yeah, so that's why I love painting busts. Like, they actually are my favorite scale to paint, because I love doing being able to do the tiny details. Like doing these colored irises, you don't get to do that in 28 millimeter. You get to do it in busts. And so to do that kind of realistic, and the texturing on the lip here, all that, you can't do it in 28. Like it's just not something that it lets you really, really go for. Whereas with bigger models, you can. And so kind of what I notice is that as you get to be a better painter, you kind of gravitate a little bit toward the bigger stuff, because it allows you to explore more different techniques, more types of shading and highlighting. Another thing about bigger models is that you don't have to over accentuate your shadows and highlights as much, because it's bigger. And so it's catching the light more realistically. Whereas when you're painting a little model, you have to overemphasize your shadows and highlights in order for everything to show up. But here it's pretty effortless. Here you don't have to do that. You have a bit more, you can slide more toward realism here. Whereas here you tend to slide a little more cartoony. Now, that said, a lot of people will, slide toward realism or cartoony, just naturally, even on 28s. But I find that I can get a lot more realistic with my painting on bigger surfaces, and I really enjoy that. JP, thank you. Reaper treats me really well, though. I don't think I need a raise. But yeah, so that's why I'm working on the bust here. I wanted to be able, especially if you go back, because all of this stuff ends up on our Reaper YouTube. So if you are working on one of Julie's busts from the previous Kickstarter, then you can use these techniques that I used on her to paint Julie's busts. And the only reason I don't have like Julie's busts is because I already painted like one of them for Reaper, 2 of them for Reaper. So yeah, I ended up not getting the bust level. Yes, Kickstarter 5 definitely, yes, starter busts. Exactly. Another word for that is academic busts, Julie. That's what some companies, Hera Models, for example, HERA, they do what they call academic busts. And that's exactly it, is their starter busts. They're busts that are very simple so that you can just start out exercising the techniques. So yeah, it's a really worthwhile thing to have, because it's good to have a simple bust to practice on before you pick up something that's really complex that you really, are like, oh, wow, what am I going to do? My head just exploded. But yeah, starter busts and academic busts are definitely a thing, and a very wise thing if you're starting with these techniques and you want to, because I'll tell you, doing good skin tones at this scale is a very different ball of wax than doing it at 28 millimeter. So, I'm going to just take the hat off, I think. I'll put her down here, and we'll just hold the hat, because it was sticking on nicely, but now it is not. Yeah. Hey, here's a question. Are the Bones 5 busts available in separate sculpts? Because I really wanted the male elf, and I didn't get him. Like, are they available to buy on Reaper yet? Because I still want to get the, yeah. I still want to get the male elf, because I think that he would be actually a good subject for classes, for a class. Because he is nice and simple, but there's a lot of cloth that you could do on him. And the face is good. Not released yet. Come on, Reaper. Release the busts. Release the Kraken. Except the Krakens get released. It's the busts that aren't released. So again, we're just painting over this entire surface. Yeah, well, there was a whole pandemic in there, so, you know. And to be fair, it's going to take a long time now to fulfill Bone 6, so during that time, they can hopefully bring out the rest of the models from Bones 5. That is my hope. There. All right, so I do have a bit of a blorf here where I did not get my blue all the way down into there. I'm just going to shade it with some walnut right now, and then I'll come back and touch it up. But yeah, I always thought that the male elf bust would be really good for a class. The lady with the dragon's a little bit more involved, and so for her, I think I would use the guy instead of her, but she's really nice too. And that one I did paint for Reaper. And there are some tutorials on my Patreon as well. On Patreon. Patreon.com/paintingbig. I know Quindy threw some socials up earlier and I totally missed them because I was talking too much. But yeah. Yeah, I feel it, Crows. I've passed on a couple of Kickstarters where I was like, well. But I'm really making minis fight for my love these days. I still have one Kickstarter that I pledged to last year that still is fighting to fulfill because of just supply issues and slowness on the casting. So hopefully that one will fulfill. And then I think I have everything. And I'm trying not to pledge to too many Kickstarters unless they really, really just really are perfect for me. Although I did pledge for Bones. I'm still thinking about what I want to get. Alrighty. Getting just touched up and neatened up, and now I think we're good to get our walnut and begin kind of blocking in those shadows a little bit heavier, like that you can see through the zenith. Yeah, they were already sold out. Yep. Well, eventually, green users, eventually. Like I said, it would be nice to have Reaper busts to use in like bust painting classes at ReaperCon. So my hope is that eventually we will see that. Because you can't really tell how they'll sell if they're not available. So I'm just taking a little bit of the walnut and I'm mixing it with a little bit of my Shield Brown polished leather mix, my base for NMM, to make a little bit of just a dark gold, dark greenish brown color to bring in a little extra shadow here. And I'm just painting that in between strands of the mane, just wherever I want a little extra shadow. And then I'll be taking my walnut and directly lining around the interior of these ribbons. Reaper or bust, yes. Well, no, we don't want and or. We don't want or. We want Reapercon and busts. I don't want one to be mutually exclusive. Maybe in 5.5 that would be cool. That would be cool. Come back down. I have my camera like way up high because I was working on big things over the weekend. And big things, I like to zoom out a little bit more. So we'll bring in that dark shadow there, the dark line on the edges. Let's see here. And I need to get behind the mane back here, definitely a dark shadow. And I've got a little bit of a gap there where I missed my gold color. Yeah, I think the Dragon Bust was very popular. We regularly see them painted at ReaperCon. It almost makes me think we need more Dragon Busts. Oops. Blorf. Blorf. Blorfed that walnut. Let's get some water and scrub that off. It's on the back here, so it actually would have a little bit of shadow, so I'll actually use that to my advantage and block in a little bit of that. Oh, I haven't seen those. That is a good idea, though. People do all sorts of cool stuff. Just getting that little line in there. Want to kind of segment off the parts of this that are going to be different from each other. All right, I want to get on the outside edge here, so I've got that kind of lining in there. Oh boy, that's a good question. I thought they ran throughout the day, but like that it was like at 2-hour intervals. But oh, you're talking about shuttles between the hotels. That I don't know. No, that wouldn't be determined yet. Yeah, Inara is absolutely correct. But yeah, usually that's something that gets nailed down. I was thinking about shuttles for tours. Pardon. Usually that's something that gets nailed down toward the end. Oh no, a new dragon bust? I missed it. Well, now we know that Julie had a new dragon bust on her desk at the party, and yet we did not open it. And so now it's in the ether. Its existence is like in question. Well, that makes me super sad that it didn't get unlocked. Yeah, Inara points out all the hotels are really close. So it's very easy to get a cab or an Uber or whatever. And some of them are close enough to walk. Although it's going to be, you know, Texas is going to be trying to kill you probably as far as the temperature. So that's usually what happens. But if you're used to hot weather, then, you know, if your hotel is relatively close to the embassy suites, you should be good. All right, so we got our blocks in. We got kind of things defined with our shadows. I'm feeling pretty good about this. Just a little bit more down here. I need to remember to put this line in to make these two ribbons separate. And then I'll get to the lion face after I get the rest of this in. Oh, I missed a spot. I missed the interior lining on this. So I do want you to notice, guys, I am using a thicker paint right now, and I'm also using a fatter brush. And my lining is definitely not as good or as thin or as fine as it usually is. As I'm making more blurfs, I'm having a little bit more difficulty. I wanted to draw your attention to that because that's because of those two things, is that my paint is a little thicker and my brush is a little fatter. It's not an ideal lining brush. It has a great tip, sure, but it's the thinner brushes are a little bit better at lining. They're a little bit better at keeping it neat and not blurfing and only carrying as much paint as you need. So be aware of that. Alrighty. Now we can put down some white and hit the red in there. I have no idea about Crow's Nest. That would be a Quindy question. Crow's Nest is on tonight. Yeah, this is the wrong time of day for Crow's Nest return up. This is my show. Crow's Nest is on a little bit later. $5 p.m. Central, USA Central Time. But yes, every morning it's me. I have the first slot. I'm gonna get his mouth kind of painted in dark here. I darkened in his eyes as well. The lion. want to thin my paint a little bit and darken in the inside of the ears and around the face. You definitely want to always put in your darks before you do things in NMM Gold. So here I'm just kind of separating out and blocking areas in. Nobody attacks John or Justin. That is not appropriate behavior. Seems like just a little bit of confusion to me. My show is fine too. Oh, announcement in the Discord. Oh, I see, I see. I see. So he just stated that he'll be on, and so you came over because you thought it was on, but it's not on yet. Got it. Okay, we've managed to unravel the mystery. There. So now I've got nice lining all around my lion face. It's really standing out really well. So now I feel like I'm going to put that backdrop on. Yeah, no torches and pitchforks. It's early in the week. I feel like if you're going to set fire to things, you have to wait till the end of the week. Seems like a shame to burn everything down on Monday. Oh, okay, so I really can't put my fat brush. Well, I can use fat brush for this. But I loaded it with the wrong color, so I really can't use fat brush. So when we're starting to do these little inside areas behind the ribbon, on the back side of the ribbon, then we need to go to a smaller brush. But we do not endorse misguided hate on this show. This show is full of love and painting and butterflies and pretty birds, although the pretty bird hasn't stopped by today, and puppies. Although the puppies are virtual puppies at the moment. They may or may not exist. Actually, that's what we are. That's the Schrodinger's reference. Is currently I own Schrodinger's puppy. We cannot confirm whether it exists or not because we cannot yet look at it. So, Schrodinger's puppy, rather than Julie Schrodinger's dragon. Do not burn the butterflies! Be quiet. Butterflies make me happy. No burning butterflies. They're in enough trouble due to us humans. They don't need an additional problem. And rainbows. There's rainbows too. So you can see how it's easy to get a little bit of paint on the wrong portions. That's why we're going to be doing this inside out, meaning we're going to be painting first with the red, that is the most recessed area, and then moving outward. And I'm just going to take a little bit of my walnut and touch up the white that I got onto that surface. There we go. I'm just going to take my really fine brush. I want to pop that white out just a little bit more. Because this is a very tiny little area in here, we need that white to be really bright. Otherwise, the red won't show up. I find a positive mindset to be so much better for my life in general than a negative one. And I probably there are days I care more about butterflies than I do about some people. So, but that's been true of me since I was a little kid. I've been all about animals and very skeptical of humans. But I try to give humans the benefit of the doubt nowadays. Lets me spend my energy on more productive things, not to worry so much about the humans. All right, so we're blocking in this white. And still easy, lots of time to do touch-ups. So if I like have a little bit of unevenness there, I can touch it up now. So I'm going to make this a little wider because I didn't quite get close enough. I can still see some of my gold underneath. There, that's nice and bold. And I feel like I need to get a little closer down here too. So be sure to turn around. When you start feeling like your hand is cramped or you're having trouble doing an even line or kind of just filling something in like your hand is tensing up, change the position of the model so that you can paint from a comfortable position, and that will help keep you from going over the lines. Brush control is also part of it, just building brush control. But that will happen naturally when you paint, as long as you're mindful of not like forcing your hand into odd positions. The more comfortable you feel and the more you can adhere to the same sort of brush stroke from the same direction while you paint, the faster you will build brush control. My mom worked at a butterfly preserve for a while. It was her Sunday job. She tries to find a part-time job and just work, even though she's in her 70s now. She's likes to stay. She likes to be working every once in a while, like just to have like one day a week where she can go out, get out of the house, meet people. Mom's pretty social. She's less of an introvert in some ways than I am. She likes to get out of the house and talk to random people. So she likes to work at like Park Service, like welcome places and stuff like that. All right, so I'm gonna go and hit the back of this, but now I can use a bigger brush. Oh yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while, Scrying Eye, because we moved in August. So we've got the house pretty much where we want it now. We bought some art for our big main room, so we're very happy with our paintings, and I've got my divider back here, so half of my office is for writing and half is for painting and streaming. Pretty good. I don't think I'd change anything except to like once the doglet comes, I have to like clean out this corner over here that I kept for a doglet sized space so that the doglet could hang out with me while I'm teaching in the morning. And so you guys could get doglet cam, which I still have to figure out. I have to talk to John about how to do it. So I'll need to split one of my USB ports, I think, to get another camera input so that I can have a dog cam. And then I have to find my, I need an arm that I can clamp onto here and have the dog cam out here, which should be easy. I just need to get an appropriate dog cam. Dog lick cam. I don't think it'll be close enough for the puppy to lick it, because then it'd be close enough for the puppy to eat. So let's not do that. Yes, I am writing. Well, I do both Raven Day, because I write PDFs and stuff for my Patreon, and then I also am working on a fiction series, of which the first book is done, And I've just actually just found a proofreader, which is kind of the final step there. I'm just making some last minute quick revision based on a beta read I got. But the first book is pretty much all set after that proofread. Just waiting on cover art, and I will independently publish it next year because of the cover art. I write epic fairy tale adventure, young adults. Epic fairy tale adventure is not a real genre, but it is what I write, so it's the best term for it, really. Yeah, it's not congrats yet, Revan Day. It's not congrats until it's out there. Then it's party time. Then I can be like, whoa, I've accomplished a life goal. So yeah, but thank you anyway. But yeah, we're doing it right. So got a professional editor. Now I'm gonna have a proofreader on it, and yeah, got a professional cover artist, which is why it's taking so long. So book 2 is in revision. Yes, exactly. I grew up reading things that I would call epic fairy tale adventure, and so that's what I write. Plus, I love mythology and fairy tales and folk tales. Yeah, we'll absolutely do it. I might not publicize it right away with you guys because I found out a weird thing that Amazon's algorithms do. So you might have to wait to actually find out that it's out. Because it turns out that actually having all your family and friends go out and buy your book, like right when it releases, is a terrible idea. Terrible, terrible idea. Because, and the reason for that is that, especially when you're a baby writer like me, I'll have like one book out at first and then 2 books hopefully next year. But when you're a baby writer, Amazon is trying to figure out who your audience is. And if all your friends go out and buy your book, Amazon's going to have a really hard time figuring out exactly what's in common between all you guys. Because, some of you are into cooking, and some of you are into, curling, and some of you are into archery, and some of you are into knitting, and some of you. And so essentially, you can really kind of screw yourself up, apparently, if you're a new writer and you tell everybody about your book right away. Because Amazon won't be able to figure out like who your audience is. So it's better if you publish it and get like organic traffic, do a little advertising maybe. And then after Amazon has figured out like who your real target audience is, then it's okay to unleash your family and friends on the book. So just weird marketing things that I've learned kind of doing research and reading over the last several months. I thought that was funny. It makes sense, but it's still kind of funny. Bye, Shadow Raven. Yeah, I think it's a fun book, Thormel. We'll see. Like, this is, like, to be a writer is a life goal of mine, as mentioned. So, whether it sells or not, I'm going to keep writing. Yeah, it's a thing, Beguiler. Because what Amazon's trying to do is that it's when your book is newly released, it's trying to figure out, okay, who should I show this to, right? Because it's a new release. It's exciting. So Amazon looks at who is buying your book, and it kind of looks at what they bought, and they go, okay, well, this is a person who's into epic fantasy, so I should show this book to other people who read epic fantasy, right? But if you, like, have your mom and your aunt and your grandma buy copies, and they don't read epic fantasy, then Amazon gets confused, and it shows your book to people who love kittens or knitting. and then your book kind of, like, burbles and kind of doesn't do as well. So it's kind of funny. No. It'll be next year. I'll just tell you guys eventually. Yeah. Well, we'll just create our own genre. Right, Raven Day? I'm just going to create my own genre. I mean, other books are in this genre. There are other people writing fairy tale, rewrite or what do they call it? Reimaginings or retellings. That's what it's called. Fairy tale retellings are definitely a thing, right? But there are a lot fewer people, like, writing epic fantasy based in a world that's based on fairy tales, which is what I'm doing. So my world is based on Norwegian folklore. Now you could argue that a lot of epic fantasy is actually based on that way, like in more steps removed, right? Because obviously Tolkien was basing a lot of his stuff on actual myth and creating a unique world from that, right? So I think that's kind of at the roots of fantasy fiction. But my stuff definitely has a fairy tale vibe, is what all my editors and the people I've talked to have said. So very, very fairy tale. Not so much classic fantasy, which is what I wanted. So it's exactly the book I wanted to write. We will see if other people like it. Kitten-loving knitters have good taste in books, just saying. It's so true. Oh, man. I don't think I've read Ursula Vernon, but I'll look her up. I would recognize book titles more than... Now, keep in mind that with fairy tales, I'm not talking about actual fairy, like fae novels. There are a fair number of those out right now that are popular. Yes, exactly, Trasherama, exactly. But that's what happens. That's what happens. So yeah. So weirdly, my friends, you guys, and my family are the last people who are going to know when I publish this book. Just because I want to actually, like, you know, have Amazon target the correct audience before I start throwing random people like trash who buy 100-pound, you know, packages of macaroni and cheese. And it could be that all my fans are fans of kittens and knitting and macaroni and cheese, but you know, if so, I want that to be an organic, you know, like a discovery by Amazon. All right, so we got a beautiful rich red going on here. You can see how much that red pops when you really lay it down in a nice thick layer over the white. Trash. Oh yeah, I've read T. Kingfisher stuff. She actually, yeah, I love one of her, the Guide to Defensive Baking, the Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. Yeah, she's a good writer, really good writer. I should go searching out the other books by her because I enjoyed that one. And the funny thing about her, by the way, is that, like, I think the Wizard's Guide and some of her other books... Okay, cool. Thanks, Red Links. I'm always looking for new reads, especially reads that are kind of in my genre. But she has a note, I think, where she couldn't get anybody to, like, tackle. Like, there's just some books, like The Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, where she just couldn't get anybody to take it, like in traditional publishing. And so she just ended up putting it out, and it did really well. And then it got, I think somebody picked it up. I'm not sure. But it seems like that's what I experienced too, because I submitted to 84 agents before I decided to just go the indie route. But it's funny, it's a fairy tale seems to be a hard sell until it's not. When the knitting cat lover takes a break. Oh yeah. That's a lot of mac and cheese. That's funny. But yes, I do see that probably knitting cat lovers would indeed probably still enjoy my book. So maybe I inadvertently have stumbled upon my ideal demographic there. Although, if you aren't aware, and if you like paranormal mysteries, which is a thing, I am actually currently reading a paranormal mystery series. I think it's indie published too, but it does involve cats and knitting. So that is kind of funny that this came up. It's probably why I mentioned knitting at all. All right, so we've got red. Let's take a look. Where are we? Let's go back and figure it out. Oh, it's also almost time to... Oh, crocheting dog lovers. Yeah, I know many of those because I know many dog lovers. Well, look, guys. Hey, this is coming together now. Hold on, let's back out. Like, I love it when we start really covering up the white primer and we still have, like, large chunks of the mini that are pretty much, like, done or partially done, where you start to really see the color scheme and how everything's coming together. It's not dark. No. It's cozy. It's very lighthearted. It's called Vampire Knitting Circle. I picked it up just on a whim because I'm like, this sounds just way too silly. But I'm actually, although she's a pretty good writer, like I can see her improving with every book. But yeah, the red does look great, doesn't it? Like, and it really brings out the rosy tones in her face too. I was afraid it was going to actually do the opposite, but it really, she looks better. Like her skin looks better now than it did before. So I think that we're coming along pretty well. And yeah, I think it's about 8 after, so it is about time to call the stream. But that's the one. Housemaid is enjoying them. Yes, they're fun. They're fun. They're just, sometimes I just want something lighthearted to read, you know, just that isn't going to make me try too hard. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of that. So cool. I think it looks pretty good, guys. What we did today is we talked a lot about underpainting and about, and we did some undersketching with the zenith. We blocked in more of our gold. We blocked in our red. This is what we're doing today. It's called color composition, where we're just working out where to put certain colors. In this case, red is our accent color. Wait. We can do one more thing. We can plug in the bandana. Let's plug in the bandana. So now... There we go. So that's where we're sitting right here as far as our color composition goes. We've got the aqua. We've got the red blocked in. We haven't done the feather. The hat, the little band around the hat is going to be the same color as the off-white here that's going to come up to white. So yeah, so that's where we're at right now. And the feather's going to be mostly white with bits of red. I don't want to, I feel like I need a little bit of aqua like somewhere else on the model, but maybe not. Because aqua is close to the blue. So I'm still jury out on that one, but I'm liking it so far. So I'm glad you guys like it too. Yeah, we'll keep working on her for now. Much as it always pains me when I have to tell people the bust isn't available. It's still pretty cool. But yeah, Crow's Nest. Special guest will be Ron Hawkins, he who always must be thrown under the bus, and Joseph Wolf. So cool. Yeah, you guys have a great day too. Tomorrow we'll be working... tomorrow we'll be working on... as everything falls apart. We are back on The Magician tomorrow. Our awesome pink lady that we've been working on. Pink and purple. Because why not? We haven't done a pink and purple color scheme. So, yeah. So there we go. So I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a lovely, fantastic day. I hope you're having a great start to your week too. And yeah, enjoy your cats, knitting, mystery novels, and epic fantasies. Yeah. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.